In a rebuilding year, the Packers went 13-3 and made it to the NFC Championship game. Uh, what do you think needs to happen to make the Super Bowl this year? That's the topic for tonight, so stick around. This video is brought to you by Packer Fan Cave. Everything you need to turn your man cave into a Packer Fan Cave. You can check them out at packerfancave.net. There is a link in the description below this video. So, like I said earlier, the Packers started out on a rebuilding year with a 13-3 record and making it into the NFC Championship game. Obviously, the goal is to make it to the Super Bowl. And today our question is, what does the team need to do to make that happen? Here to discuss this with me is my good friend and lifelong Packer fan, Mark Padriana. Mark, thanks for coming back today.
Thanks as always for having me. Love being here. Love talking Packers, especially this time of year.
Right. There's, we're kind of getting close to that time where where we're gonna start seeing free agency moves around the NFL, and people are already talking about the draft and what's going to be happening in the draft. And obviously the Green Bay Packers' biggest need right now is at the wide receiver position and potentially tight end position. Do you think that's what they're going to do with their first round pick this year?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think a lot of Packer fans would like to know the answer to that. It seems, the beauty of it is that we've identified our positions of need. They're limited this year. It's not like going into last season before free agency where we had so many holes to fill. And did such an amazing job filling those holes, especially defensively last year. But we left the cupboard a little bit bare on offense. So this year, going into the draft, which is about 7 weeks away at this point, fortunately for us, it seems like wide receiver is a position of depth in this draft. But that could mean that the Packers don't take a first-round wide receiver, knowing that there's going to be somebody that's, of fairly comparable value that's going to fall to them in the second or third round. I personally believe that if they identify somebody, they should go and get them, regardless of where that is, even if they have to trade up a few spots in the first round. I don't want to see them give up a ton in the draft, but I think it's such a position we need such a complement there to Devontae that it's going to make the team so much better. And there's some guys in free agency, and we talked off air that they could combo it up and maybe do draft somebody and take a free agent. So we'll see, but I think it's definitely the position that needs to be addressed along with tight end, inside linebacker. Those are our obvious needs.
No, I agree. Absolutely, if you identify somebody that you want and he's there in the first round, you take that guy and be happy and fill your position. But sometimes you'll be in a situation where there's several guys that you want and you feel like at least one of them will be there the next pick. And in that case, where if they're all like, I equally want each of them, and I don't have to take one, I could almost see going for an inside linebacker in that first round also. It's really a position that we're okay at, but when you look at what happened to Green Bay's defense both of the times that we've faced San Francisco, you really start to notice that there's that one gaping hole somewhere in our defense that would be nice to fill. But again, I agree that if there's a wide receiver that you think that's our guy, then you definitely pick him up in the first round.
Well, here's a question now: what type of wide receiver are we looking for? Because we talked off air about Gutekunst and Lafluer sort of differing on what their ideal wide receiver is, and I think both types of wide receivers. Obviously, you'd want that perfect marriage of the two types of wide receivers into one. But if that were that easy, everybody would do that.
Right.
But I think there's benefit into both kinds of wide receivers. A big wide receiver like a Devontae, a guy who's maybe 6'3", 6'4", that can use his body. Maybe not necessarily the fastest guy in the world, but can get open, knows how to run routes, and can use his great hands and big body to separate. or there's the burner. There's the
Yep.
under 6 foot guy that can, there's your slot guy that can create a lot of, chaos on the line and have a defensive scrambling because even if you're not throwing to him, he's such a threat. So
Right.
I see value in both. Personally, I think there's enough size on this team that I would love that complement of speed and a slot. But we'll see where they go. I'm confident in the management group and in
Yeah.
Gutekunst. I mean, he's done nothing to disappoint me this far. So, I'm confident in where he's going to go, but it's going to be interesting to find out where they ultimately decide that, their need is.
Yeah. But it's nice this year to not have as many needs as we normally do have. Normally at this time of year, we're talking about how many holes are all over the team on both sides of the ball. This year we're talking about the potentially one hole in the defense and, an offense that really only played under this system for 1 year now. And I can't even imagine how much better everybody on that offense is going to be running this offense next year. But definitely you see the holes in the wide receiver category where, I really feel like, I agree with you, and we're kind of on the Matt Lafluer ticket with this one, where a good slot receiver is somebody that I think would make a huge difference on the team. When you look for the downfield guy, we've got Davante Adams that's good at that. I mean, Davante Adams can kind of play both, on his end. But I think if we could get like that good slot receiver, the next Randall Cobb would be a nice thing to have on our team.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at, what Kansas City has done on offense and just the amount of, I use that word again, chaos that they caused was having so much speed. You still got to be able to catch the ball, but their receivers are just so fast, and even their tight end is just a matchup nightmare for everybody because of his speed. But and I don't think we need to, completely redo the receiving corps to try to match that, but it would be a nice compliment to have in there, to have somebody who's creating a lot of havoc at the line of scrimmage and having linebackers and safeties and cornerbacks scrambling to figure out which route he's running. And like I said, even if you're not throwing him the ball, it's taking that much attention, more attention away from Devontae, because Aaron's still going to target Devontae. He's still going to be his number one guy no matter who they go out and get or who they draft. But it's interesting because I didn't realize the amount of wide receivers that are actually available this year in free agency, and some I think are past their prime. But there's a handful that I think that are 26 and under that are looking for that next contract that could really help this team a lot. It'd be interesting to see what happens in Dallas, what they do with Dak Prescott, because if they re-sign him, that means Amari Cooper is almost for sure they're not going to re-sign him. I mean, he's a free agent this year, so that's an interesting one. I haven't heard that come up yet, but that would be a phenomenal compliment to Devontae. But
having a Davante Adams and Amari Cooper and then a first-round receiver out of this draft, that would be...
And there's a lot of good first-round talent out there. There's a lot of guys that really excite me when I see the highlight package of what they can do. And I think I don't think they absolutely have to do that the first round, but I'm going to be concerned if they don't address it by the second round, unless they go out of free agency next, in 2 weeks from now and, get 3 wide receivers. Then I'm not going to be looking for them to draft one early. But if they don't, then that's it'll be interesting. I guess free agency sort of sets the table for the draft, but I think they're going to dip into both. I don't think they'll go as deep like they did last year, free agency, spending all that money, but I do think they're going to address whether it be tight end or wide receiver, even if it's not a big name guy. I think they'll go out and pick somebody up.
Yeah. Well, and especially you look at the best seasons Aaron Rodgers has had in his career were in 2010 and 2011 when we just had so many receivers, that Donald Driver barely got on the field.
Yeah.
When you look at that crew, that we had James Jones and Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings and Donald Driver, when you've got plenty of guys that can get open and catch the ball, and Aaron Rodgers, who's obviously good at spreading the ball around, it's harder for a guy who likes to spread the ball around when you just don't have the talent around you to spread it to, and then you're kind of forced into trying to force it to one guy. And Davante Adams is a great receiver, but you can't throw it to him on every play.
Exactly. Not just the talent, but you don't have the trust.
Right.
And that's a big thing with Aaron, is trust in these guys. And so, I think, like I said, I'm confident in the decisions they'll make, but I think, they're going to get somebody that's compatible with Aaron's style if they're going to draft somebody. And I think, as far as the tight end position, we just saw recently Greg Olsen signed with Seattle and the Sea Chickens.
Yeah.
And that's fine. He's a big name and he's had a great career. But I'm done going with a veteran tight end tight end for the Packers. I think it's not worked out the last couple of times. And no offense to any of those guys, but it's one of those positions where, I think youth is best served at that position because you're creating a matchup where you're either too fast for the linebacker or you're too big for the secondary. And I think at a certain point, there's diminishing returns on these guys, like all, athletes, and especially positions of speed. But, I'm glad they decided not to tender an offer in that direction. Not that I heard that they were, but, I mean, with any of these free agents, I think we set a tone last year with bringing in the Smith brothers, both at 26 years old, both on second contracts, both really hungry. I'm not saying that a veteran here or there is a bad thing. I mean, it could be a real positive. But in terms of money and in terms of diminishing returns, I don't want rookies coming in and just, everyone has to start like we've had to do in years past. But that guy who's on that second contract, who's earned that second contract but is still hungry for more, that's the kind of guy that I think we're looking for. And man, we hit the jackpot last offseason. Hopefully we can do that again.
I was so surprised last year. I mean, we had Ted Thompson for so many years, and you knew he just wasn't going to reach into the free agency very often. He did bring in Julius Peppers. He did bring in Charles Woodson. He did make some moves throughout his career, but they were few and far between. And obviously you don't want to be the team that's pulling in free agents every year and trying to build your team every year off of free agents.
Washington Redskins. Sorry.
But when you look at the moves they made last year, I thought they did a really good job turning the team around, bringing in the right guys. And this year I just don't feel like we have as many holes as we're normally used to having as Packer fans. And, you can talk about reaching into free agency, and if they pick somebody up that's at the right age and the right dollar amount and really going to help our team, that's a good thing. But it's a nice feeling this year just to know that we don't have to. Like, I won't be disappointed day after day when I hear about all the great pickups other teams are making and not hearing about the Green Bay Packers. Like, I won't be disappointed to not hear that the Packers picked up a free agent, but I'll be excited to hear if they pick up on Amari Cooper or anybody that I really think will help our team out.
Well, that's the other reason I have confidence in Gutekunst, because not only did he bring in great players who did the job and earned their money, but he brought in guys that fit, guys that are leaders. And now there's a core there. It's not just Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and a couple other guys. There's a core that's real that fans should be excited about, but I think other players, potential free agents, should be excited to complement and help build what they already have brewing there, because I think they're ahead of schedule. We talked about it a million times, how last year was supposed to be a rebuilding year, and we were 13-3 in the NFC Championship game. So I think this team's close, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do.
And I feel like the personalities that he brought in last year too were they were really guys that wanted a team. Towards the end of Mike McCarthy's time here, I really felt like a lot of them, they didn't so much act like a team so much as a group of people that played for the same organization.
Mm-hmm.
You know, last year you saw a lot more team spirit. You know, you saw a lot more people who, you know, really wanted to be a part of a team. They wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves. You know, and that's something, again, we saw that in 2010 and 2011, you know, but after that, I just felt like, you know, we slowly declined, and the whole concept of being on a team as opposed to just playing for the same organization slipped away over time. And, you know, I really hope to see that continue throughout Gutekunst's time here, picking the right guys that are team oriented like that, and hopefully Matt Lafluer keeps the message going of the whole team concept that they really started last year.
Yeah, a lot to build on, and it's coming soon.
Yeah.
3 weeks till free agency and 6-7 weeks till the draft, so everything's coming up, and I'm sure we're going to have more to discuss here in a few weeks.
Yep. Now, you know, too, beyond the obvious at wide receiver and maybe inside linebacker, something else I think this team, you know, can really start to focus on this year is actually building depth.
Yeah.
You know, you can, now that you don't have as many holes on your team, you can start to say, let's bring in really good backup linemen that can step in and play when we need. And we had, you know, guys that could step in and play last year, you know, but nobody that I was really excited about. You know, I would like to see, you know, if Bulaga needs a playoff, I'd like to think that he could take one, or Bakhtiari, or any of the guys on the offensive line. I think, you know, I'd like to see some better quality backups at that offensive line position. And I really do hope to see him step up the backup quarterback position this year as well. I don't have a problem with Tim Boyle, but I just feel like we could do better.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because that's one thing we haven't haven't talked about is, you know, potentially Bulaga not being there.
Yeah.
You know, he is a free agent. They do have the option to re-sign him or let him walk. I haven't heard a whole lot in either direction. I've heard the pros and cons of both, but I haven't heard from the team necessarily what their plans are. So that, you know, that may be something we also have to address in the draft. But it would be nice, to your point, you know, we have 10 draft picks. It would be nice if, you know, we can actually, you know, rather than taking 3 wide receivers and hoping one of them works out, like you said, we can start building depth at positions of strength already. But, yeah, adding a little more depth, and I wouldn't mind seeing more depth in the secondary as well.
Yeah.
You know, I like the 4 guys that we have that are starting.
Yep.
But, yeah, I'd like to see a little more depth back there and on both lines, absolutely. I think you're right about that one. But, yeah, it's nice that you don't have so many positions of need when you're drafting that you're not relying on rookies to come in and start day one and, you know, be ready to play, because there's just certain positions that it's really difficult to do that. So, yeah, I would really love the position we're in where we can actually draft for some depth and look forward to the future.
Yeah. And what do you guys think out there? Do you think there's more holes that we didn't talk about? Do you think there's anything that we need more than a receiver? Let us know in the comment section down below. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Share it with all your friends. Mark, thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me anytime.
And for the Packer Fan Network, I am Mark Schneider.